Insiders! Welcome back to Wit and Wisdom in Sync. My name is Ms. Foley, and this is Module 1, Cultures and Conflict. Let's see what awaits us as we close in on the end of this module. You will need a few materials for this lesson. You'll need Assessment 31, End of Module Task. You'll need Handout 29A, which is Chief Joseph's Lincoln Hall speech. Handout 31A, which is the evidence organizer for the end of module task. And your Wit and Wisdom in Sync journal and a pen or pencil. Feel free to pause the video now if you need to retrieve any of those. So what is the essential meaning of Chief Joseph's Lincoln Hall speech? Over the last few lessons, you've been reading Chief Joseph's Lincoln Hall speech, which he delivered to members of Congress in Washington, D.C. in 1879. That was only 2 years after the surrender at Bear Paw. And in this speech, Chief Joseph speaks not just about his own ideas or his own beliefs. He actually speaks on behalf of his people, the Nez Perce, as a whole. And today you're going to explore his speech to consider what are the central messages that he wants to convey to his listeners, those people in Congress. What are the ideas and beliefs that he and his people hold so dear as their most important cultural values? As we read Thunder Rolling in the Mountains, you examined Chief Joseph's words and his actions that helped you infer what his beliefs and values were. Before we revisit Chief Joseph's speech, let's recall how the author conveyed some of the most important beliefs and values through his actions in the novel Thunder Rolling in the Mountains. I made this chart to capture some of Chief Joseph's actions from the story. Pause the video for a few moments and read over the actions listed here. So number 1, for example, Chief Joseph does not agree with the redcoats that they should fight the bluecoats. Remember that part? When I think about Chief Joseph's action of not wanting to fight, that tells me he is not a violent man. If he doesn't think violence is the answer to the Nez Perce problem, then that shows he values peace. So I'm going to write peace in the value or belief column like this. Pause the video and analyze what values or beliefs are conveyed through Chief Joseph's actions in the numbers 2 through 5 on this chart. Please record your ideas for the beliefs and values associated with these actions in your In Sync journals. And I'll meet you back here. In reviewing some of Chief Joseph's actions, did you think about his strong beliefs in peace and avoiding violence at all costs, really? Did you think about his love for and his connection to his homeland? Did you think about how much he loves and cares for his people and values their well-being? And what about the deep, deep respect that he has for his ancestors, whose bones are buried on his people's homeland? As you read Chief Joseph's speech again today, pay close attention to his choice of words and think about how they reflect his own beliefs and the values of all those who are in the Nez Perce tribe. Remember that our focusing question for this learning arc is, what important Nez Perce beliefs and values does Chief Joseph convey in his Lincoln Hall speech? In exploring this question, it helps you understand the module's broader, essential question about how cultural beliefs and values guide people. You'll express your understanding of both questions on the end of module task. You're going to write an essay about how Chief Joseph conveys 2 important Nez Perce beliefs and values in his speech. The work that you do today, which is going to be rereading Chief Joseph's speech with a focus on important beliefs and values of the Nez Perce people and gathering evidence, will help you prepare for the end of module task. Before you engage in that work, let's look at the end of module task together to get a sense of what you'll be asked to do. You'll need Assessment 31, which is the end of module task, and Handout 29A for the next part of the lesson. Pause the video now to make sure you have those handy. Well, look what we have here. We have Assessment 31, end of module task. Can you believe it? You're going to write an informative explanatory essay for which you are well prepared. So take out your copy of Assessment 31, end of module task, and read it along with me. Also, feel free to annotate it if there are any things on there that you would like to make sure that you pay close attention to. You can certainly make a note of it on your copy. So, again, what's the purpose of this task? Well, the purpose of this task will give you an opportunity to express your understanding of the essential question of Module 1. And the essential question is, how do cultural beliefs and values guide people? In writing this essay, you will demonstrate your ability to synthesize the beliefs of a culture while creating an organized essay that uses text-based evidence. Introduction to the task. Throughout the module, you've been asked to think about how the beliefs and values of a culture, specifically the Nez Perce, guide the actions of its people. You've learned about Chief Joseph's story and read his famous Lincoln Hall speech, which he delivered to members of the U.S. government years after his surrender at Bear Paw. What important Nez Perce beliefs and values guide Chief Joseph's powerful words in his speech? Here's your task. For an audience who has read and studied Chief Joseph's Lincoln Hall speech as you have, write an essay to explain how his speech conveys two important beliefs and values. And I'm going to make a note of this because we always want to keep in mind that there are two beliefs and values that we want to make sure we discuss in the essay. Two important beliefs and values of the Nez Perce people. Develop your ideas with evidence from Chief Joseph's Lincoln Hall speech. So notice this time you are only going to be using Handout 29A, Chief Joseph's Lincoln Hall speech for this evidence collection. Your essay should include, now this is the success criteria list, and I'd love for you to read along with me because these should sound very familiar to you. Ready? An introduction that provides background or context for the subject. Really remember you want to set your reader up to understand what's happening so that the reader doesn't get confused about why you're writing about the Nez Perce beliefs and values. You'll need a clear thesis that states two beliefs or values of the Nez Perce. You'll also need two supporting paragraphs. And why do you suppose you're going to need two of those? That's right. One that develops each belief or value that you've identified in your thesis, just as you did in your previous essay. In each supporting paragraph, you'll need evidence from Chief Joseph's Lincoln Hall speech that supports the identified belief or value. And guess what else? In each supporting paragraph, you'll need elaboration of the evidence. And remember, that's always important because it explains how it shows an important Nez Perce value or belief and how that value or belief guides Chief Joseph's words. You'll be using transitions within and between paragraphs, and of course, a conclusion that reinforces your thesis and reflects on its significance. Remember, this up here is the what, and this is the so what. Why is it important? And you get to make that one last point for your reader about why it's important. And as always, focus on using correct spelling, punctuation, and capitalization as you do so. This is really important to keep in mind. So take a moment to reflect on how your work throughout this entire module has set you up for success on this very task. Think about the knowledge and the skills you've built that will help you tackle this and succeed. Did you think about how much you've learned about the Nez Perce culture? Did Did you think about how you've learned to gather evidence and organize it, and then elaborate on it by explaining why it's important? You've even really spent a lot of time evaluating evidence to determine which evidence is the strongest. So, what kind of evidence do you think you'll need to gather as you reread the speech? That's right, you're going to be thinking about the bigger picture, so you'll need to gather evidence of Nez Perce cultural values, not just specifically the personal values of Chief Joseph, the values that are important to the entire Nez Perce culture. Ready to get started? For this check for understanding, your job is to analyze Chief Joseph's Lincoln Hall speech for evidence of Nez Perce beliefs and values. First, reread parts 1 and 2 of the speech on Handout 29A. Then, underline evidence of important cultural beliefs or values. Next to that evidence, write the cultural beliefs or values represented. You can annotate right in the margins, however that works best for you. Are you ready to begin? Pause the video and complete this check for understanding now.
Okay, boys and girls, I want you to use your actual workbook for this because I do think it is very helpful for you to actually underline or highlight evidence that shows important cultural beliefs or values. So go on over, grab your workbook, open up to Handout 29A, and then go ahead and pause this video and follow what is on the screen.
Welcome back. If you need more time to reread the speech and annotate for evidence of Nez Perce beliefs and values, pause the video and make sure to get that done now. Otherwise, you are ready to gather and elaborate on evidence for the end of module task using, you guessed it, an evidence organizer, and it's going to look very familiar to you. Why don't you get that ready for the next part of the lesson? Pause now if you need to retrieve Handout 31A. Here's your evidence organizer for the end of module task. It's Handout 31A, of course, evidence organizer for the end of module task.
Boys and girls, I want you to head on over back to Schoology, and I want you to grab this or open this in our folder with today's materials. It's Handout 31A, Evidence Organizer for End of Module Task, and it will look exactly like this, except it'll give you more room, and you can type into it.
Great news. Doesn't this look familiar? Absolutely. And just as you did with the evidence organizers for your previous focusing question tasks, if you need more room than this, you can certainly copy it on a larger piece of paper. But let's take a peek and see what's on this evidence organizer to help you get ready to be successful on the end of module task.
Before Mrs. Foley gets into this, there is an additional section at the end of this evidence organizer that you can take a look at, and it's just some ideas and some things that are important to note if you were struggling as you were reading the Lincoln Hall speech. You can also go to the online version of the speech that's in our folder for today, and I've highlighted and I've put that information in there as well. So if you were really struggling while you were reading to come up with some of those beliefs and values and finding the evidence, you can head on over to that resource.
So you have, this is the source that you're going to be using, Chief Joseph's Lincoln Hall speech. You also are going to be writing about 2 important beliefs or values, and I wanted to point this out to you. What important Nez Perce beliefs and values does Chief Joseph convey in his Lincoln Hall speech? There could be many, but you are going to collect evidence and determine what are the 2 specific beliefs or values that you choose to write about. Here's where belief or value number 1 is going to be listed, and you can name it. Remember, one of the values that we talked about previously was peace, that you value peace. That's an example. You could use a variety of different beliefs and values. And Chief Joseph Lincoln Hall speech, same thing. And here's where you're going to write your second choice of the belief or value that you would like to write about. Okay, on either side in the columns, these probably are going to look very familiar. First of all, remember, this is your number one place to start, your evidence. What details in the text reveal the Nez Perce's most important beliefs and values? And going to remind you, remember that when you're quoting directly, you have to use quotation marks. But then, I want you to say it in your own words right beneath it to make sure you understand it and to make sure you can rewrite it in your own words. Elaboration. You picked this piece of evidence over here that you recorded. Now you're going to tell, what does this evidence show about the Nez Perce's most important beliefs or values? Why is it important? Remember, this is going to help answer the so what question. How does it guide Chief Joseph's words in his speech? Notice here it says source and page number. I would recommend that you write the paragraph number here because Chief Joseph's speech is laid out with paragraph numbers. So you may as well just change the paragraph. And then the context. What in particular is happening in the text, or in this case, the speech? Write any background that the quotation needs. What are we going to do next? First, you're going to review all of the evidence that you collected. Then choose 2 cultural beliefs or values, especially that you think are very well represented on your evidence organizer. Then write each belief or value in the space at the top of the page on Handout 31A. Pause the video and complete that task now. For this next check for understanding, you're going to record and elaborate on evidence on Handout 31A. Individually, you'll review the evidence you highlighted from the speech on Handout 29A. You should choose the strongest piece of evidence that matches the value or belief that you identified to record in the evidence column on Handout 31A. Remember, the strongest piece of evidence will be the easiest to write about. Of course, you're more than welcome to record more than one piece of evidence. Copy the quotation from the text and briefly paraphrase it in your own words underneath. Then record the paragraph number for the evidence in the source column and give a brief context for each piece of evidence in the context column. In the elaboration column, reflect on the significance of the evidence. Think about what it shows about the Nez Perce beliefs or values, why the beliefs or values are important to Chief Joseph and the Nez Perce, and how these beliefs or values guide Chief Joseph and the Nez Perce. You ready? Pause the video and complete this task now. Now is the perfect time to reflect on the central messages of Chief Joseph's speech. In other words, what's he asking of the U.S. government in his speech? What does he want for his people? Pause the video and write down 3 words that you identified that capture his central message or request from the U.S. government.
Boys and girls, you can head on over to your InSync journal and complete this section in there.
Give me a signal like a thumbs up if you identified messages or requests for any of these. Equality, justice, freedom, liberty, promises that will be kept, and the return to the homeland. How do the cultural beliefs and values you identify relate to those central messages and requests made of the U.S. government? Take a moment to think about that, and then share your ideas with a learning partner, or just say them out loud. If you were thinking, well, they're pretty much the same, you're right. there is a correlation between his central messages and requests and his people's beliefs and values. Thank you for your hard work. I hope you're feeling very confident as you move into the end of module task because you have done so much work to prepare for it. You've also done a lot of thinking about just how powerful beliefs and values are and how they drive the decisions that people make and also how they act. And I want you to know it has been an honor and a pleasure to work with you over the course of this module. I look forward to seeing you again soon. And in the meantime, take good care of yourself and take good care of those you care about.